Okay, it's been a little while since I've had an opportunity to do one of these. Work is busy right now with the holiday season and everything coming up, and I've been extremely busy. There is an article I want to respond to today, which comes actually from a site that I normally agree with on a lot of occasions, but I'm in disagreement with this one. But to clarify a couple of points, if you're ever in the online community or like on social media, inevitably, and I've talked about it a little bit in videos before, but somebody inevitably will come along and they'll say something like, I'm critical of AA, but a lot of you just seem to like you hate AA. Or somebody will come along and say, I went to AA for a lot of years and I left AA and I don't understand why some of you are, upset about it. You just seem like bitter people and you need to get over it. Or words to that effect. It always happens pretty frequently. And this article kind of touches on that same thing. They use this generalization, and I've seen a lot of AA people do it. They use this generalization, the anti-AA people, or you even got a few people who are critical of AA that want to talk about, those horrible anti-AA people, like, people like me, for example. But I just think it's funny that you're going to say that you're critical of AA, but you don't like people being upset about it, or you don't think people should be angry about it. And to me, that always hits me the wrong way, because what you're more or less saying is you're kind of saying that you have determined how people should feel and how people should act, or how people should react to what they've been through in AA. You're also minimizing the experiences of many people in AA. People in AA who have been financially exploited, who have been sexually exploited, who have been, because of their involvement in AA, which caused them all kinds of mental problems and everything, and then they finally see what kind of organization it is, and they have every right to be upset about it, and they have every right to be angry about it or outraged about it, or even if they just want to vent and express their feelings. I don't see that someone else gets the authority to make this determination that people shouldn't be outraged and shouldn't be upset, or that people who, like this article I'm about to quote, it says something like most anti-AA people are just, motivated by just blind hatred of AA. It's a real clever manipulation tactic of diminishing everybody's feelings that might be angry at AA or outraged at AA, but you're going to use the words blind hatred in a really derogatory manner. In other words, you're saying that everybody who's upset or outraged about what happened to them in AA or what they've seen in AA, they're just filled with blind hate, which, by the way, is a classic ad hominem attack that they bring up in logical debates. You're just attacking a person's character. You're not actually saying if they have a legitimate reason or not. You're making a gross generalization all the way across the board based on your own feelings. You're saying that if people react in the way that you don't approve of, then somehow they're invalidated in their opinions about that. Not necessarily this article, but the general common trend I see, they think, and it's funny, whenever they're talking about the anti-AA people, there's a part of me that wonders, well, who exactly are these anti-AA people you're talking about? Because there's not a uniform organization of anti-AA people that all have the same idea and the same opinion and the same doctrine and the same book like AA does, or some type of platform where if you don't talk the way I feel you should talk, then you're really truly not anti-AA. I don't really see this complete bulk of these people that are just all motivated by hate and have nothing to say or nothing to offer. I mean, if you spend any time online among people who are critical of AA, or in any group online with people critical of AA, they have a variety of different opinions. They have a variety of different outlooks on life. They have a variety of different attitudes about what should be done about addiction. So there's not a uniform generalization that fits everybody who's anti-AA, except whenever they choose to make this generalization that everybody's angry, about it. And that also annoys me that we live in kind of I'm not saying we live, but I'm saying that I've noticed there's this attitude online, which I feel is very heavily influenced by AA, that criminalizes people who are angry, or more or less makes you, in a subtle way, it demeans your opinion about things because you're angry. If you're a little bit upset or you're angry or you're outraged, then your opinion must not have any merit to it whatsoever. it sounds too much like the old AA trick of you have a resentment if you have a legitimate concern. I guess what these kind of people who are critical of it are, I guess they want me to sit up here with a big fake grin on my face and say things like, I don't really dislike AA. I don't really hate AA. AA helped a lot of people, and there's a lot of fine people in AA. And there's nothing wrong with AA. Well, I'm not going to do that. Okay, I mean, I'm not in this corner of the YouTube universe. I'm not going to do that. I mean, I saw lots of irreparable harm done in AA. I saw a lot of psychological abuse and emotional abuse done in AA. And I have testimonies from people in the online community and on social media all over that had similar experiences. So I feel that if you're demanding that someone just say there's good in AA, you have to also take the bad with AA too. That too much is like AA influenced thinking for me. But that's just the point I wanted to clarify to get out of the way before I go to this particular article, which is called An Open Letter to the Anti-AA Movement. It comes from the Clean Slate Addiction site, which it's kind of ironic in a lot of ways. Like I said already, there's a lot of information on here, much information on here that's actually very valuable. It shows how many professionals don't believe in the disease theory. It shows how many people who are in the field of medicine and science will say that there's no empirical data. There's nothing out there that proves that anyone has some kind of mental thing that just forces them to drink themselves, into oblivion, like an addiction, like a disease. I mean, there's lots of valuable information on here. I just feel that the guy is missing the mark with this particular letter. What he's talking about is he makes a mistake, for one thing, of saying that, it's kind of like the same old thing I've heard from AA people that say, the anti-AA people are just as bad as the AA people. Which I think is kind of ridiculous because, like I said again, there's no gigantic organization of anti-AA people telling you that if you don't do what they say do, you're going to die, which is exactly what AA does. But the first thing he points out in this article is, are these expressions merely blind hatred for AA, or is it something more meaningful? Well, I think it is meaningful sometimes to express blind anger at AA, which is not blind hatred, for one thing. Blind hatred, to me, connotates that you're just angry at something without any real justification, that you don't even have any real solid foundation for being angry. You're just filled with hate at something without any real logical or without any real sensible reasons for being angry. A lot of people have real good reasons for being angry at AA. It destroyed their lives. It destroyed the lives of loved ones around them. So it's not blind hatred. But what I find funny is the first few paragraphs here. There's no point in me going over them. I totally agree with everything he's saying. He's saying that we were made to feel like that we were inadequate when we got to AA because we couldn't quit drinking. We're told that we have a disease that we're powerless over and we have no control over, which generally warps us psychologically, I think, worse. I know the powerless concept made my life, as far as drinking was concerned, 10 times worse. The idea that I'm powerless and can do nothing and I'm dependent on a group for the rest of my life, yeah, that has a tendency to have a negative effect on someone. I've always believed that if you have an addiction, well, not always believed because I was in AA for a long time, but now, and for quite some time, I believe that people with addictions need to be told they have power, not that they're powerless. And then he goes on to, point out many other flaws that's wrong with AA, and I totally agree with all of them. But then he gets down here to where he says that he kind of believes that a lot of the anti-AA people are just as bad because they're promoting AA culture or something like that. He didn't use the word culture, but words to the effect of we're actually teaching people things that are negative in terms of what's good for them, which I kind of find interesting. But let me see. Let me get some direct quotes here. So I'll just have something to back it up. But the first thing he does is he says that a lot of the anti-AA people are guilty of saying that AA needs to be controlled by professionals and AA needs to be controlled by addiction counselors and therapists, and that there's no evidence-based treatments for people with addictions. Well, I mean, I don't have a problem. I don't normally say that my problem is that AA is not run by professionals. I don't normally say that my problem is that there's not addiction counselors and therapists in AA. My problem is AA, the whole entire philosophy of AA, the literature of AA, everything it teaches to me is a major problem. I don't believe in reforming AA. I don't believe it can be reformed. I don't think you can take a religious cult that tells you you're a bad person, essentially, that you're selfish and self-centered, that you're full of fear and anger and resentment, that you're just no good at all morally, and that you have to be dependent upon it to cure your drinking problem, or else, to quote its own literature, we must obey spiritual principles, or else, or anybody who doesn't conform signs their own death warrant. I don't see anything valuable about that. So I don't know which anti-AA people he's talking about here, but I'm not one that says professionals need to be in AA. I'm one that says that the court system and the treatment center system needs to be out of AA, and the multi-billion-dollar treatment industry is a huge, gigantic AA monolith and monopoly that needs to be openly challenged. That's what I'm saying. But he goes on to say evidence-based treatments are a complete fantasy. 12-step facilitation is an evidence-based treatment. No, it's not. Okay, you're wrong there. AA refuses to be scientifically studied. AA refuses to be looked at. The people, like George Valiant, who decided he was going to prove that AA works, came back with appalling results. So it's not evidence-based treatment. There's no evidence, hard evidence, that AA is helpful to anyone. But then he goes on to say, what does this say about claims supporting other evidence-based treatments? Well, first of all, other evidence-based treatments, and I'm not big in any of them necessarily, but other evidence-based treatments don't control their members with threats of death and intimidation and tell them it's jails, institutions of death if you don't conform to what we're doing. They're not telling you at the point of, you will die if you don't do this and do that and obey spiritual principles that are never clearly defined. And I don't think they refuse to be, studied by the outside world of the scientific community. I mean, cognitive behavioral therapy actually has trackable results. The Sinclair method actually has trackable results. Not that I'm saying I push people in that. He's claiming that anti-AA people, and there again, here we are with this gross generalization. Oh, the horror, to quote Joseph Conrad, the anti-AA people are saying everybody needs a group and everybody needs evidence-based treatment and that everybody needs to go to professionals. I've never said any of that. Okay, but I mean, let's be honest here. Let's be real. I mean, there are people with legitimate psychological problems. There are people with legitimate triggers. There are people that have certain problems and trauma and things like that might be fueling their addiction. Are you saying that if I'm an anti-AA person who's just motivated by blind hatred of AA, that I shouldn't suggest or say that there are alternatives out there, that there are other possibilities, there's other things you could do? I'm not currently in smart recovery. I'm not currently doing cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm not currently, involved in anything like that, but I'm not saying to everybody out here, you have to have a group, you have to be in a program. So, I mean, you're kind of making a generalization here with that. He goes on to say the same disease powerless theory that's been so disillusioning and disempowering to so many people in 12-step programs over the years, well, I agree with him there, becomes no less harmful when it's taught by someone with medical or counseling credentials. If your point is that a lot of doctors out there teach AA and a lot of shrinks out there push AA, then yeah, I 100% agree with you there. Yeah, I mean, be leery of any doctor or counselor that starts telling you need to go to an AA meeting. But then again, I'm not advocating you go to doctors. I'm not advocating that doctors have the answer for everything. I'm not telling you, and I don't know of anybody that's doing this. I know people who are critical of AA who are in smart recovery. I know people who are critical of AA that use the Sinclair method, but I don't actually see them. Like if somebody comes along online and they say, I'm leaving AA, I'm tired of AA, they don't just jump right in and say, well, you must be in smart recovery, you must do this, you must do that. So On that, I'd have to disagree with you. And then he says, what I'm getting at, obviously, is that AA and other 12-step programs are dangerous, I agree, because they teach people how to view themselves as weak and powerless and in need of an external force to cause them to change. Totally agree with you. Totally agree. But meanwhile, the supposed professionals that the anti-12-step movement so readily recommends as an alternative do the exact same thing. But that's not necessarily true either. You've got doctors out there who are coming out against the traditional 12-step model. You've got professionals out there who have challenged the 12-step model. And there again, you're saying the anti-AA 12-step movement. I've never said in these videos, you must go to a doctor, you must go to a therapist, you must do this. So, I mean, on that one, I'm not exactly sure if you're talking about a particular individual or a particular group, but I've not seen that anywhere online. I've seen people talk about what's helped them. I've seen people say they went to SMART for a little while. I've seen people say that they've used the Sinclair method. I've had people on this video said they used Jack Trimpey's rational recovery. They just, decided I'm done and they quit. But I've never seen anybody who's critical of AA say you must do these things. So this to me sounds almost like a straw man of some sort. But I'll just continue a little bit. Then he goes on to say the professionals may actually be worse. Well, if they're professionals who promote AA, I would agree. But even the rare few who don't do this are going to sabotage them in other ways. They tie every normal problem of life to drugs and alcohol. Did bad things happen to you as a child? That's going to cause you to drink and drug. Did you have a special stressful day? That's going to cause you to drink and drug. Anxious? That's going to cause you to drink and drug. Feeling lonely? Going to cause you to drink and drug. These are just normal difficulties that everyone faces, yet not everyone chooses drug and alcohol as a response to this. Yes, but these are legitimate reasons that people who have developed addictions to drugs and alcohol have. Okay, you can say that other people out there don't do that, but that doesn't have anything to do with addressing the problem of the individual who's drinking and drugging as a result of these things. Did I drink and drug because of a bad childhood? I didn't have a wonderful childhood, but I'm not going to say I did. I'm not going to say, but I did drink many times because I was under stress. I drank many times because I was feeling hopeless. Okay, I drank many times over many reasons, and sometimes I drank just because I wanted to drink. You know, to rip off a quote that's not necessarily true that Freud was supposed to have said, but, it's like internet memes. A cigar sometimes is just a cigar. Sometimes I went and drank because I wanted to drink. But even there are still motivating factors involved in that, okay? And those motivating factors should be looked at, I think. Even it's something as simple as choosing to go to work in the morning. I get up, I choose to go to work in the morning. Am I choosing that completely in some kind of vacuum, free from all influence? No. I mean, I kind of like my job. I mean, who really loves their job? I like the people I deal with. I've been there a while. I know what I'm doing, so I'm not going to have to go out and look and be a new guy somewhere that has to start all over from scratch. I need the damn money, okay? And when I get up in the morning and I say, oh, hell, I wished I could just call in sick today. I don't feel like fooling with it. I know that if I make it a habit to do that they'll look at me as a non-dependable person, and it could come back to bite me later if I need that. So all these different factors determine why I get up early every day and I go to work on time. It's not like you just wake up one morning and say, I'll just go to work because I think I should go to work. It's the same thing with people getting drunk. People get drunk for a lot of different reasons. Are you saying that they're just as casually making that decision as you would flip a coin? And that there shouldn't be no reason to look at this? That people shouldn't try to find help for their problems? I mean, I'm not sure what you're getting at there. But it does sound a little bit demeaning to say, well, if you had a bad childhood, you're just using that as an excuse to drink. I mean, that sounds almost as bad as, I don't want to be cliche, but it sounds almost bad as the AA people when they say, oh, I'm not going to baby you. I don't, care nothing about your feelings and all that other shit. These same AA people that say they don't care about your feelings and all of that, the first thing they'll do, or they'll say feelings are not facts. The first thing they do when they find people like me on the internet or in the online presence that are critical of AA, the first thing they do is they jump straight into emotional rhetoric, and they always involve lives. Telling the truth, telling these things about AA, people are going to die. People are dying out here. People. They don't give a shit about people. I mean, they sit in meetings and say, by the grace of God, when people die. They sit in meetings and say, some have to die so others can live. But whenever their precious cult is threatened, all of a sudden they care about people's lives. Then he goes on to say, many of you have completely rejected the addiction treatment world and the disease concept. Well, I think most of us have. That's why we're not in the addiction treatment world and we're not in AA meetings. But then you turn around and say that people need vitamins and nutritional supplements and microbiotic food or whatever in order to stay sober. Don't you realize you're doing the exact same thing as the 12 Steps groups? You're teaching people that the cause of their substance use is not a direct choice and caused by biological factors. Well, now that's a apples and oranges situation. And again, I don't see anybody in the anti-AA world as you're making it out to be. I don't see them doing that. I don't see anybody just saying to someone automatically, when they say, oh, AA is not working for me and I quit. Well, you need to get on vitamins and microbiotics. Okay, I don't see that happening. And even if that did happen, let's just say for the playing devil's advocate here, it's not the same thing as the 12 steps. It's not telling people they're immoral, that they're weak and powerless and motivated by greed and selfishness and self-centeredness, and unless they turn their will over and do inventories and become slaves of asshole sponsors who have no idea what they're doing and don't care, they're only doing it for sadistic reasons, that they're going to die, I don't consider that the same thing. But I don't see anybody saying you must get on a microbiotic diet. And by the way, alcohol does cause vitamin deficiencies. I mean, that was one of the reasons why they said I might have had for a contributing factor. Whoa, I just stumbled all over the place there. They said that was one of the reasons I might have a contributing factor in the peripheral neuropathy that I made a video about suffering with, vitamin deficiency. If you don't think abusing alcohol doesn't cause vitamin deficiencies, I mean, nobody in AA told me that. I had to research that and find that out on my own. I had to actually go to one of those dreaded professional doctors that we're not supposed to recommend people see. But wait a minute, you're saying that I'm motivated, or that the anti-AA movement is motivated by this blind hatred and doesn't offer solutions, but now you're saying everything they offer as solutions is just as bad as the 12 steps. So I'm confused. And then there are the spiritual experience people who latch on to new hallucinogenics, tripping on acid, ketamine, and that becomes a popular suggestion every few years, a cure for addiction. Well, now, let's just be honest here. That kind of thing goes on all the time, and it has nothing to do with anti-AA people, okay? I mean, New Age people that are always saying, like this CBD oil. I mean, some people I've seen swear online that CBD oil is the cure for everything. And then I've seen CBD oil professionals actually say, no, it's not the cure for everything. So you're generalizing here. And it's not just anti-AA people who do that. That happens all the time. There's always trendy diets that come and go. There's always trendy vitamin things that come and go. There's always, something that comes and goes. I remember, there was this idea when it comes to the gym and working out a long time ago that, the no pain and no gain and all that. Now that's regarded as not true. That's regarded as something that's a relic of the past, not to be used anymore. A long time ago in the gyms, every guy would take as much weight as he could and he'd put him behind his neck and he would do that with him. That's largely considered unhealthy now and not the thing to do when it comes to, it could damage your neck and everything else. So health trends come and go. It's not got nothing to do with anti-AA people. And then he goes on to more stuff that just seems to say that we're supporting the disease concept by see yourself as being in need of support. Well, there's really, truly nothing wrong with getting support. I mean, are you implying that anybody who just needs some support from outside friends or something like that is just as bad as AA? I mean, the idea of a fellowship of people trying to overcome their addiction ultimately is not a bad thing. The idea of a cult religion dictating a fellowship of people as to what to do and what to say is a bad thing. Why should a mutual support group by any other name result in anything less than that mess that is AA? Well, that's kind of question begging is what you're doing there. You're assuming a conclusion to a question. I don't think, I attended one SMART meeting and it was nothing like AA, okay? I attended one and I decided, well, maybe I attended a couple. I don't really remember. It's been a long time ago. I attended a couple of them, I think. It was nothing like AA. I just decided for myself that I don't want to go to groups any longer. That was my personal decision. It has nothing to do with what other people want to do. And it has nothing to do with me telling people where they must go and what they must do. And no, that's kind of a logical fallacy here. You're assuming that any mutual support group, by some slippery slope, is automatically going to become just like AA. You're not powerless, the anti-AA people say, but you need a mutual support group. Screw those people who say you'll relapse without the support of AA, but you better make sure you get help with your underlying issues. I never said that, and I don't think anyone else did. I think that if you have underlying issues and you cannot quit drinking, and you're having psychological issues and you cannot quit drinking, what are you supposed to do? Just keep drinking and say, oh, this is a choice. This doesn't have nothing to do with anything. This is just choice. I can stop anytime I want to. It's just choice. I mean, you do realize that choices are mitigated by things that go on within us, both outside circumstances that influence us, by past memories, by biological makeup in our brains. And yes, some of it could have to do with vitamin deficiency. Okay, even when you're deciding whether or not you want to eat this or eat that flavor of ice cream, okay, there's a million neurons at work involved in all of that. It's not like it's just a simple matter. So I don't know what you're saying here. First, you're saying that we're motivated by blind hatred of AA without providing solutions, but now you're saying by providing solutions, we're perpetuating the disease concept. I'm sorry, that I can't agree with. To the anti-AA 12-step anti-disease model movement, I beg of you, stop missing the point. Well, you haven't really made a point. Okay, blind hatred of AA, to me, people need to vent. People need to be told, yeah, the AA program is bullshit. Yeah, being told that it's your fault that you were raped when you were a kid, okay, and you had a part to play in that, and until you own that, you'll always drink, is bullshit. Telling people who have been beaten up, mistreated, and abused, okay, all their lives, and tell them you have a part to play in all of that is bullshit. It needs to be called out, and people need to be angry about that kind of thing that's going on every day in meetings. People need to be pissed off that vulnerable people are going to AA hoping to quit drinking and are being told absolute lies and bunk psychology. Fight it consistently. I am fighting it consistently. I don't know what we're doing here. Anyway, let's see. I'm going to go on down. And the anti-AA 12-step movement. I'm skipping a lot here because there's some I agree with. I'm saying I'm not totally just in total disagreement with him. I fail to see the point that he's trying to make here. The anti-12-step movement, and accordingly, this movement has its own detractors. Those devout 12-steppers that say we just want to bash AA and other 12-step programs. I'm sorry to say it, but in regard to many in the anti-12-step movement, they may have a point. AA needs bashing. Okay, it needs bashing. It needs to be bashed out of existence because of the harm it causes people. But again, you've just lost me here. Telling people to go to alternate groups, that's perpetuating AA. Just bashing AA is just terrible. If you detest the 12-step recovery movement, but you recommend replacing it with similar things minus the 12-step buzzwords, then your criticisms must be questioned. Well, first of all, I haven't recommended anything. I think everybody should be free human beings to make their own choices and be free agents. That's what I believe. And as far as you calling my criticisms into question, you can do that all you want to. I'm not worried about that at all. Is it just personal, or are you really trying to fight against the counterproductive ideas of recovery culture? Figure it out. That's so fucking arrogant and condescending in one way. Is it just personal? No, it's not just personal. I left AA a long time ago. Okay, I'm not doing this because I'm still pissed off at AA. I'm not doing this because of just me personally. I'm doing it because of how many people that are out there that are still going through this. I'm doing this because of the court system that unfairly puts people in those programs. I'm doing it because of the fact that our current system, the way it treats alcohol and drug addiction, is woefully inadequate, is still stuck in the Middle Ages somewhere, and has not progressed one bit in the last 80 some odd years because of this silly religious program. That's what I'm doing it for. So I don't need you to tell me to figure it out. That last line kind of really pissed me off. So, well, there again, I'm one of those anti-AA people motivated by blind hatred. Blind hatred. Like you don't have a right to be angry at AA. Like you don't have a right to be upset about what happened. It's just personal. You just have a resentment against AA. You sound just like those motherfucking 12-steppers. Well, you just have a resentment because the program didn't work for you. No, I have a resentment because the program is failure. The program is failure and it harms people. That's what I have a resentment about. Anyway, by the way, dictionary definition of resentment means a sense of outrage over an injustice done to you. It doesn't mean blind hatred like a lot of these AA people think. But anyway, I'm going to link the article in the video, and I'm going to, put it up there, and you feel free to disagree, agree, or whatever you'd like to do. But, that irritates me. That does that last sentence. And anyway, hopefully I'll see you guys soon. I do have a response video I got to make to someone that said AA under attack. Hopefully I'll get to that next time.